Welcome to Molecules to Market, a program by Portfolio Planning Plus. Today we are joined by Mr. Sanjay Gupta for another session where we are going to discuss about a model refinery. I don't give another introduction of Mr. Sanjay Gupta as we did it in the previous sessions we did with him. And we will put a link to his profile in the comment section down below. Your hosts for this session today are Uwe and Nicola. And Mr. Sanjay Gupta, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to say hello to you.
Yeah, that's great. So I think we decided to start the work on the model refinery in India. So the first question I would like to ask you is, why does India need another refinery?
Okay. Well, of course, welcome once again. I think in the previous two sessions that we had given a brief overview of the hydrocarbon industry in India and how configurations have evolved. Now, towards the fag end of the last session, we had hinted that the dynamics is changing in the country. And actually, while we are calling the hydrocarbon installations refineries, actually they are looking more like petrochemical complexes. We are not really aiming to maximize fuels as we were trying to do in the early days. What we are actually looking at is to have a good combination and flexibility of fuels, distillates, as well as petrochemicals. So I think all the new projects which we are going to have, and let me tell you very frankly that we will continue to put a lot more hydrocarbon installations, lot more refining capacity because that looks to be a defined strategy. The country is growing at a brisk pace. We have a strong economic growth. So there is all-round requirement. But two distinct patterns which we are noticing is, yes, there is a distillate demand which is also on the increase. There is an export emphasis also by way of strategy. But there is a consistent demand of of petrochemicals, which is indicating a very high CAGR growth. So I think one shift which necessarily has to happen is that we need a good balance between refining, the conventional refining, and petrochemicals. So that is one issue which is settled. The other issue is if you look at the map of India and the refining installations which have been put, all the hydrocarbon complexes, let me put it that way, you will find that because of the trade which we do on crude, there has been a preference towards the western part of India. Most of the refining capacity or hydrocarbon installations have actually come along the western coast of India. But strategically, if you look uh, from energy security point of view also, there is a distinct emphasis now to also look into the eastern coast of India as much. So, of late, you might have noticed that there is a certain trend which is moving the hydrocarbon installations towards the east. Some projects have been announced, some more perhaps are on the drawing board, they are in the planning stages. So, there is going to be a distinct emphasis to look into some complexes toward the eastern block of India. I mean, while
I
you
put
see,
the I put a map here. If you maybe you can
yeah, that's
comment
right.
on this. Yeah.
So, if you look into the northern and the western coast of India, you find all those dots which are with big refinery complexes, particularly in the Gujarat region, which has a lot of refining and petrochemical capacity. Then down south, as we go in Maharashtra, we've got refineries. Then you go down to Karnataka, you have a few more. You go down to Kochi, you have something more. But if you switch over to the eastern side, you see something in Tamil Nadu, you see something in Chennai, and then if you come move upwards, you see Vaishakhapatnam out there. There is a refinery which is existing there, and there is another refinery which is planned in Andhra Pradesh, which is going to be in the lines which we are going to discuss today. And
Okay.
probably there will be few more complexes which are in the conceptual stages. Most of these installations will not look like refineries. They will come under the garb of refinery, but it will be having a distinct emphasis towards petrochemicals. They may have a broader outline of something which we have just put in Rajasthan, which we call as HRRL refinery, which is an integrated complex. Integrated complex, by in our parlance, is when we put the steam cracker that you see up north. If you go, you will see
North.
Rajasthan above Gujarat.
Uh,
Yes, you see Rajasthan there. That's right. And there is HRRL refinery there. I don't know whether you marked it or not. It hasn't been marked as yet.
Panipat. Where is it?
Panipat is fine, that's existing. Punjab is
Guru.
HMEL. But between that, Punjab and Gujarat, a new refinery has come up, which we call as HRRL.
I think we have it, but I'm not sure
I
it's at
don't
the
think
right
it is, I
location
can't
here.
see it on the map here. It's near Barmer.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
well,
We
anyway.
will.
So,
We
so,
will
so,
find it.
yeah, there's no
Hmm.
problem. You can locate it later. And
Hmm.
that's one of the first in terms of an integrated complex.
Hmm.
So that is number one. Number two is the scale of the refineries. You see, I think we've been discussing this subject. We started with in the early 90s at 6 million, then gradually moved up to 15 million, stuck around that. But all the virgin plants were between 9 to 10 million tons capacity only. Nothing really above that, though a lot of things have been conceptualized, but nothing has taken shape beyond 9 million grassroots as such. It has come by way of expansion. So maybe there was 6 million already existing. So we put another 9, so it became 15, put another 3 or 4, then it became something more. So the capacity has grown that way, multiple CDUs and things like that. The trend perhaps is beginning to look slightly different. So I think first part, when we look into any refinery, and I'm going to answer that question of yours to why we should have a lot more,
Yeah.
uh, is what we set up. In our parlance, we call it as a design basis. I'm quite sure you also have something like a design basis in which we set the objective function of the plant. Now, it is very important for us to know as to why we are setting up the plant. So that is one objective function that defines what exactly is going to be the orientation. In the early days, the orientation was to have a fuels refinery and maximize LPG and diesel. At a certain point of time in between, it became that, okay, let's have fuels, let's maximize diesel, let's maximize LPG, but let's also have some petrochemicals. Then there was another school of thought that why don't we integrate these plants and add some aromatic and olefin complexes along with that. So an existing facility was there, and we either added a steam cracker or we added an aromatic complex and had a whole lot of downstream units. That's the other way of looking. The modern day thinking is that let's look at a grassroots complex which is a mega petrochemical complex and also produces some distillates. See, the Indian trend is going to remain that we should have diesel, we should have LPG. For some more time, I think we should have LPG, although its demand will rationalize. And I think, as I told you earlier on, we would prefer to use LPG as a petrochemical feedstock because that's where it serves best in terms of economics. But currently, the market demand is that we require LPG because it has to meet the cooking fuel requirements in the country. But over a period of time, when we are looking into a slightly mid-term perspective, let's say another 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, there is likelihood that LPG will phase out, will have more piped gas, more CBG actually to serve the cooking fuel requirements. We might have a little bit of green hydrogen, more induction heating, so that we relieve LPG and utilize it as a petrochemical feedstock. So that is one development which we have to keep in mind. So most of the plants have to be conceived from that point of view.
So
Second part is
induction heating, you mean with electricity?
that's right with electricity.
Yeah.
So that
So and we have to consider a source of electric power
yeah, in
for
India
the
actually,
refinery.
yes, in India actually the emphasis is that we are going for a lot of solar power, and we are putting a lot of solar power installations on top of the roofs of various buildings. So they generate enough power to cater to the requirements of the domestic, whatever are their domestic requirements in terms of heating, even cooking. And that actually is spreading like anything. So there is a lot of emphasis by the government. The government is also giving a lot of incentive. The idea is that maximize solar and through that particular part try and displace the hydrocarbons as a cooking fuel. So that looks to be the emphasis, and in several states this has already picked up momentum, and what we foresee is that in the next 5 to 10 years there should be a bigger transformation in this area. So a lot of
Uh,
solar cooking would be adapted, and in the process, LPG, which is the conventional fuel right now, will be displaced. Now, to supplement solar cooking in various places, we will have piped gas. So there are both the emphasis are
okay.
there. There's a lot of piped gas which is there, which is being connected both in the urban centers, now moving down to towns, etc., plus solar. So this as a combination will enable a lot of LPG to be displaced from here for its utilization as a petrochemical feedstock. So that's one major development which is taking place. The other part is that if we have to look at petrochemicals which have to be produced, the scale is very important because, as we all know, the petrochemical facilities are a lot more expensive as compared to refineries. But the capacity for that has to be world scale, because if the facilities are not suitable for economies of scale, it really does not pay off. So that means if we have to put a steam cracker, it has to range between 1.7 to 2 million tons of ethylene production. I mean, it could be a lot more depending upon, and we will discuss that. But whatever we are going to produce from the feedstock, it should be in this regime so that it compares with the best in the world and gives you
What
the right
what
kind.
uh, what feedstock would you be considering for the
Yeah,
steam
I
cracker?
will come to that.
Okay.
The feedstocks typically in India will be multiple feedstocks, because as I
Yeah,
have been
mixed with.
mentioning all along, we don't have gas in this country. Since we don't have gas, so our feedstocks will be LPG, naphtha, heavy naphtha, light kerosene, that kind of stuff. And so it will be a multi feed cracker, so to say, as
Liquid, a
most of the
liquid
facilities.
mixed with cracker.
Yes, liquid plus gas. So the idea is, the if we maximize gas in that, the recovery of ethylene is much higher, because the lighter the
Yeah,
feedstock, the more the conversion. But since we
80%
don't have
around.
that feedstock, we will be looking at integrated. That is why I am calling these as integrated complexes. So the idea would be that when we set up a new complex, or the complex should be such that it should be able to define the capacity of the steam crackers, where I am minimum between 1.7 to 2 million of ethylene. and whatever I get as propylene from there, which could also be maybe between 1 to 1.5 million. So they are going to be very large facilities. Why I'm telling you
Yeah.
that is because unless I define this thing, I cannot come to the capacity of the plant. The capacity of the
Yeah.
plant is actually being governed by these factors. The second part is when we are looking at petrochemicals, see, as I mentioned in the last couple of sessions, if I only look at a steam cracker integrated to a refinery, irrespective of the size, then the maximum petrochemical integration which I can do is to the tune of 30 to 32%. Beyond that, in India, it is not economical. If I produce more ethylene beyond 32%, then I have to do something with my diesel. I have to crack diesel, for which I need hydrogen, for which the hydrogen is an expensive utility. Plus, I don't have gas in the country, so it doesn't serve. The economics doesn't serve in India. It serves well in Western countries where they have a lot of gas. So they have associated gas, so they can multiply to any amount and go for even larger size of crackers. In fact, they can multiply many more crackers in the same complex. But in India, when I have to generate my own feedstock, I have to be conscious of the capacity. So I think maximum which I can generate is 30 to 32%. But my
Of
intention
of
is to
of what? Of chemicals or
of
of ethylene?
petrochemicals. So if I put
Petrochemicals. Yeah.
X quantity of crude, then 30 to 32% of that can be
Yeah.
converted into petrochemicals. Petrochemicals means ethylene, propylene, and derivatives of that in polymers, MEG, POG, blah blah blah, all those things. But
And you
essentially,
consider also the aromatics in the
I'm coming to
petrochemicals?
that. So
Yeah.
when I say maximize petrochemicals, my intention is not only to maximize petrochemicals which are on the olefin route, ethylene and propylene. The intention is also to maximize the aromatics. Now, when that happens, then the crude conversion from X can be taken up to 42 to 43% economically in India. It can be a lot more, but in India, we have worked out that around this number, a combination of an olefin complex, a reasonably sized aromatic complex of let's say 1.2 to 1.5 million tons, and apart from that, creating some distillates in the refinery serves as a good complex. That means one of the very important part to define the capacity of a new complex would be what really I intend. If my intention is to maximize petrochemicals, my refinery capacity automatically goes up beyond 15 million. So we've done a lot of studies on that, and we have come to one understanding that if I have a complex which is to generate 1.7 to 2 million tons of ethylene and correspondingly propylene, plus 1.5 million tons of aromatics, a good capacity would be in the regime of 20 million tons. So I must
Okay.
aim for a complex which should have a crude throughput of at least 20 million tons so that I produce lots of distillates, I produce lots of petrochemicals, and I do them economically.
So this
What
scale, this 20 million tons is the scale of the Vadinar, Nayara refinery.
Yeah, something like
20.
that, something like Naira
Yeah.
refinery. So this is the capacity. Why I said 20 million tons looks like a threshold, because a single crude column can handle this kind of crude. Because in India, I am not going to process sweet crude. This is very important. We need flexibility because India is a crude importing country. And we don't want to restrict ourselves to any country specific, so to say. I must have the flexibility of sourcing crude from anywhere. In India, currently we source crude from as many as 40 countries and more. And possibly in times to come, it could be even more from there. So we want flexibility. Number two, we do not want to restrict ourselves. We are aware that if we have to go for maximization of petrochemicals and a use sweeter crude, then automatically I can get a lot more petrochemicals from there. But we will choose not to do that, because if we do that, we will constrain ourselves by way of crude availability. We are never very sure, and you know it, the geopolitics in the world is such, there can be a lot of arm twisting. So we
Where
want to have it.
where, where would the sweet crude be coming from if you were to
Yeah, I know.
convert
So
sweet crude?
so so India itself produces about 30 million tons of sweet crude, as I mentioned, from Mumbai High. There is some sweet crude which is also available in Middle East in smaller quantities. There is a significant amount of sweet crude which comes from Africa, particularly Nigeria. There is a lot of sweet crude which can be sourced from USA, because USA API crudes are all very sweet. So as I told you in the previous two sessions, most of the time when we define our crude unit or crude and vacuum distillation unit, this combination of 50-50, 50% sweet, 50% sour, or 30% sweet and 70% sour, this is the kind of design basis which we take for our crude slate. So that this gives me a chance to design the crude and vacuum distillation units for high flexibility. What happens is, when I go for sweet crude, the top section of the crude column, that means the lighter ends, that is the governing part. I get more lighters. So the top section gets controlled by the design of the sweet crude which I put into the refinery. And the bottom section of the crude unit or crude and vacuum unit is decided by what I go for, the what is the quantum and type of sour crude. So all our refineries are designed for extremes. I can process any sweet crude within this band of 50 to 30%, and sour crude between, let's say, 70 to 50%. So my bottom section are slightly bigger. As I told you, we want more flexibility. Our analysis reveals that putting a little bit more capex in the refinery is not an issue. Flexibility and freedom to process anything in the refinery is vital, because we don't want to lose that flexibility. That is why we use a mix which is sweet sour combination, and our analysis reveals that one single crude column can be designed with a crude mix of, let's say, 30-70, 50-50. I don't have to multiply the crude column. It gives me a very efficient crude column configuration. So one thing which we are going to do in our refinery is define these objectives. A, maximize petrochemicals. B, maximize for some time LPG also, because till system as it gave phased off, I want flexibility so that I can maximize LPG. Have reasonable amount of gasoline. No, so reasonable amount of gasoline. Typically, as I told you, 20%, 25%, that is the upper limit. We don't want too much of gasoline. Diesel actually is saturating. So we don't want too much of diesel. I mean, one would have preferred 30%, but it's difficult to get 30%. But 35 to 40% is what we typically get. But the intention would be to try and see how best I can rationalize the diesel a little bit. And we will discuss in our new configurations how we're trying to address those things. So that's the other aspect which we would like to do. Third part is, since my orientation is towards petrochemicals, I might even look into the kerosene content a little bit more carefully. We might produce some ATF, as is always done, but not too much. And if the crude recipe is good enough to support it, there is a good market for detergent industry. So one preferential product which we are looking at is LAB, linear alkyl benzene. So from the kerosene cut, we can try and recover linear alkyl benzene. It helps us in rationalizing the kerosene cut so and so. I don't have to use too much of hydrogen to put the kerosene into the diesel pool. So to that extent, there is an optimization which happens. The diesel pool automatically reduces. This is another important thing which is emerging in our configurations. So this is something which I can do straight away without getting into too much of the detailed part as to what we are going to do in the downstream configuration. The other part is, since my orientation is going to be towards petrochemicals, my MS block will look very different.
MS.
MS, motor spirit or gasoline block. It will look very different.
Motor spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. So from the crude column, typically what happens is I take the crude, go through the process, heat it to about what? Maybe 300 to 320 degrees centigrade, maybe even 340. Go to my crude furnace, go to about 370, 360, 370 degrees centigrade, and flash it into atmospheric column. Now I start getting a whole range of products from there. The topmost product is LPG, the straight run LPG. Now, LPG, as I told you, is the preferred product in India. So, this straight run LPG can be taken. I treat it, I give it amine wash, caustic wash, and this is ready to go to the market as a product. Till such time as I use it into petrochemicals, this is one product stream which comes straight away. The second cut which can be there is full range naphtha. Let me take the whole cut of naphtha from there, from 40 to let's say 170. And this full range naphtha will be the side cut coming from the column and go to a naphtha hydro treatment unit. I hydro treat the entire naphtha and put a splitter so that I can split it into light naphtha and heavy naphtha. The light naphtha from there is now available to go to the petrochemical block, to the olefin complex. In the typical fuels refinery, this light naphtha finds way into an isomerization unit, or it goes for generation of the hydrogen. In the most of the Indian refineries, light naphtha is actually used for hydrogen generation. But now, as I told you, with things happening, more LNG facilities being created, for larger complexes, it has become almost a necessity to have some kind of gas integration in the plant. So we will definitely have some gas, at least to the extent that we can meet the hydrogen requirements. So we will delink this light naphtha to go to an isomerization unit, which was utilized to maximize the gasoline pool. And instead, this naphtha can be routed to the olefin complex, first feedstock, which goes to the olefin complex. The heavy naphtha from here can go to an aromatics unit. It could be a CCR, but designed differently. Since my intention is not to maximize gasoline, we would like to put a CCR which maximizes the BTX content, the aromatics content. So you can have a large aromatic block sitting out here, which actually produces the reformate. I can go for maybe 110 RON kind of material and have lots of aromatics produced from here. In the process, I get two byproducts. One is I get a lot of hydrogen, which meets the captive requirements of naphtha hydro treatment. The balance can go to the refinery hydrogen pool. And then I get the BTX content from here, from where I will recover benzene, toluene, and xylenes, which can ultimately be designed to maximize the xylene component, which can maximize the xylenes, the PX part, which can go into a PTA block later on. So this could be a straight chain. Plus, at the bottom, I can get raffinates, which can get divided into two categories. One category which can be blended into the gasoline pool, and the other one which can go into diesel. So the MS block, the gasoline block, looks different when I'm looking into a virgin, grassroots, petrochemical oriented refinery. So let me just quickly reiterate what I said. From the crude distillation unit, I'll have recovered LPG as a straight run product. All the full range naphtha I'll take, hydro-treat it, split it into light and heavy naphtha. Light naphtha will route to the steam cracker. Heavy naphtha will use to the aromatic complex. Maximize the BTX composition from there and divide the raffinates, one as a gasoline cut, the other which can be swung into diesel and gasoline. So this is how my aromatic or the gasoline block would look like. I'll have a lot of hydrogen coming from here, which will be going to the refinery. Hydrogen is the premium product. So let it come to the refineries. In whichever plant I have the flexibility for phasing out LPG, boss, I'll have a little bit of a problem. My battery is running low because there is no power
Okay.
here. The moment I have power, I will send you a WhatsApp message and then we'll
Okay.
continue. Okay?
Okay. Let's stop this here. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Huh?
Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you. Thank you.